0500 hours, unnamed tactical position, Paracel Islands. The pre-dawn darkness sits heavy on the jungle canopy. Humidity rises from the ground like steam, coating the cold steel of 30 British self-propelled guns in a slick layer of condensation. The smell of wet earth, salt spray, and diesel fuel hangs stagnant in the air. Crews move silently through the underbrush, boots sinking into the soft mud. They drape heavy camouflage nets over the massive turrets, breaking up the jagged silhouettes against the tree line. The rhythmic lapping of the South China Sea against the nearby shoreline provides a deceptive rhythm. Inside the command vehicle, red tactical lights bathe the officers in a bloody glow. They mark firing sectors on paper maps, avoiding electronic transmissions. The island feels empty, swallowed by the ocean night. On the northern reef, 2 miles from the British battery, the water breaks gently against black rubber rafts. German Special Forces operators step onto the jagged coral. They move with practiced fluidity. Water drips from their wetsuits, they do not speak. They drag heavy waterproof cases onto the dry spit of sand. A sergeant signals with a closed fist. The team spreads out, securing the perimeter with suppressed assault rifles. They kneel in the sand, weapons trained on the dark jungle across the channel. The only sound is the wind hissing through the palm fronds. Back at the artillery park, a British loader heaves a 155mm shell into the breech of the lead gun. The heavy metal clangs shut. He wipes grease and sweat from his eyes. The massive barrel elevates slightly, hydraulics whining in the quiet. The driver shuts down the engine to conserve fuel. The vibration stops. The vehicle settles into the dirt. Soldiers check their personal weapons, sliding magazines into rifles. A sentry lights a cigarette, cupping the flame deep inside his hands. The smoke drifts up, disappearing into the thick leaves. On the reef, the German operators unlock the cases. The latches snap open. Inside, hundreds of FPV drones sit packed in dense foam rows. They look like sleeping insects. The soldiers work quickly. They pull the quadcopters from the foam and snap high-capacity batteries into the undercarriages. They line the drones up on the flat coral rock. 10, 20, 100, the rows extend down the beach. A technician attaches a shaped charge explosive to the underside of the first drone. He twists the detonator until it clicks. He repeats the motion. Click, click, click. A British radar operator in the command track frowns. He taps the glass screen of his monitor. A patch of static flickers in the north, dancing like white noise. He adjusts the gain. The static remains. He grabs the handset to report the anomaly, but the radio gives only a harsh hiss. He checks the cable. It is secure. He tries another frequency. Nothing but white noise. The jamming is subtle, rising out of the background radiation like a tide. The German commander stands over a ruggedized tablet. The screen glows pale blue, illuminating his face. He swipes a finger across the glass. On the beach, 500 tiny rotors twitch simultaneously. Green status lights blink on. The sound begins as a low hum, vibrating against the coral. The pitch rises. The British sentry on the perimeter freezes. He drops his cigarette. He tilts his head, straining to hear over the surf. The sound carries across the water, unnatural and steady. It is not the wind. It is not a boat. He raises his night vision binoculars. The northern horizon, previously empty, shimmers. A dark cloud detaches itself from the reef and begins to move. It flows over the water, skimming the waves, heading directly for the beach. The sentry screams into the darkness. Contact front! 0530 hours, British Artillery Park, Paracel Islands. The scream of the sentry triggers instant chaos. An air raid siren begins to wail, a low mechanical groan that rises to a deafening pitch. It cuts through the humid morning air. Soldiers tumble from their slit trenches. Boots slam against the wet mud. Men grab helmets and the vests. They run toward the parked vehicles. The peaceful rhythm of the ocean is gone. The air now vibrates with the sound of diesel engines roaring to life. Thick black exhaust plumes erupt from the self-propelled guns, choking the clearing. Inside the command track, the radio operator rips his headset off. He grimaces. High-pitched feedback squeals from the speakers. The jamming is total. The digital tactical map flickers and dies. The screens go black. The officer slams his fist onto the metal table. He grabs a handheld radio. He shouts into it. Static answers. He throws the device against the wall. The link to the fleet is dead. They are blind. They are deaf. They are alone. On the perimeter, the hum of the swarm transforms into a roar. It sounds like a buzzsaw grinding against bone. The first wave of German drones clears the tree line. They do not fly in formation. They move like a chaotic living liquid. They bob and weave between the palm trunks. The speed is violent. They cover the 2 miles from the reef in seconds. Free fire! Free fire! A sergeant bellows. The British infantry line erupts. 50 assault rifles open up simultaneously. Muzzle flashes strobe in the darkness, illuminating the terrified faces of the gunners. Tracers arc into the sky, creating a web of red light. A machine gunner on top of an armored personnel carrier racks his bolt. He squeezes the trigger. The heavy barrel thumps rhythmically. Brass casings spray onto the metal deck. The lead drone takes a hit. The plastic frame shatters. It spins wildly, crashes into a palm tree, and detonates. A small fireball blooms in the canopy. Leaves rain down. But there are too many. For every drone that falls, 10 more surge forward. They zip past the tracers. They dive. They climb. They are impossible to track. A young soldier tracks a quadcopter with his rifle. He fires. Misses. Fires again. The drone jinks left, then right. It accelerates directly toward him. He flinches. He stumbles back. The drone pulls up at the last second, the wind from its rotors whipping his face. It is taunting him. It flies over his head, deeper into the artillery park. The German operators on the reef watch their video feeds. The screens show the grainy, rushing footage of the jungle floor. They twitch their control sticks. They do not blink. They push the swarm through the defensive fire. They hunt for the big guns. In the center of the British position, the massive turrets of the self-propelled guns begin to traverse. They turn slowly like waking giants. The barrels lower for direct fire. But the targets are too small. They are too fast. The steel beasts are helpless against the plastic gnats. 05:45 hours, Central Battery Position, Paracel Islands. The jungle clearing resembles a slaughterhouse of machinery. Thick, oily smoke rolls across the ground, obscuring the treads of the British vehicles. The dawn light struggles to pierce the gray haze. The roar of the German swarm drowns out the shouting of the officers. It is a wall of sound, a high-pitched mechanical shriek that vibrates in the teeth of every soldier. A British air defense vehicle spins its turret. The radar dish on top whips around, searching for a lock. The quad cannons elevate. The gunner stomps on the firing pedal. The barrels blur. A stream of high-explosive shells tears into the sky. The noise is a continuous ripping thunder. The lead element of the drone swarm disintegrates. Plastic shards and burning batteries rain down onto the mud like hail. The tracers cut a bright yellow path through the flying cloud. But the swarm adapts. The German operators on the reef shift their tactics. They do not retreat, they converge. 50 drones break away from the main group. They dive simultaneously toward the air defense vehicle. The gunner tries to track them. The turret jerks left, then right. It is too slow. The first drone smashes into the spinning radar dish. The impact shatters the delicate electronics. Sparks spray across the hull. The radar stops spinning. The second drone slams into the gunner's optic sight. Glass explodes inwards. The gunner falls back into the cabin, clutching his face. Blood streams between his fingers. The cannons fall silent. With the Guardian blinded, the killing begins. The main swarm flows over the disabled air defense unit and descends on the artillery line. A loader on the third gun stands exposed in the open top hatch. He raises his rifle. A drone hurtles toward him. He fires 3 rounds. The drone dips, corrects, and accelerates. It strikes the hatch rim. The explosion is deafening. The blast wave hurls the loader down into the fighting compartment. Smoke pours from the hatch. The swarm splits into hunter-killer pairs. They circle the massive self-propelled guns. They look for weaknesses. They ignore the thick frontal armor. They hunt for engine grates, sensor clusters, and ammunition feed ports. One drone hovers perfectly still above the engine deck of the lead gun. It drops. It impacts the ventilation grill. The shape charge detonates. A jet of molten copper burns through the steel slats and pierces the engine block. The diesel fuel ignites instantly. A pillar of fire erupts from the rear of the vehicle. The engine screams and dies. The fire suppression system hisses, spraying white foam, but the flames lick higher. The crew bail out. They scramble from the side doors, coughing and choking. They tumble onto the grass. The air above them is alive with rotors. A drone peels off from the formation. It dives at the fleeing men. 0600 hours, Artillery Park Perimeter, Paracel Islands. The sun breaches the horizon, casting long, bloody shadows across the battlefield. The morning light reveals the scale of the disaster. The air is thick with the acrid smell of burning high explosives and melting plastic. The drone swarm swirls above the British formation like a tornado. It is a synchronized, buzzing cloud of death. The soldiers on the ground are insignificant now. The machines ignore the rifle fire pecking at them from the mud. They have bigger targets. A flight of 10 drones breaks formation. They line up on the flank of the second artillery battery. They accelerate in unison, the air screams as they dive. The first drone slams into the side armor of a self-propelled gun. The explosion rocks the 40-ton vehicle on its tracks. Dust shakes loose from the chassis, the armor holds. Black scorch marks scar the green paint. The second drone hits the exact same spot. The blast cracks the steel. The third drone follows the invisible path. It impacts the hairline fracture. The shape charge detonates. The jet of superheated metal punches through the compromised hull. It sprays molten shrapnel into the crew compartment. Inside, the ammunition rack takes a direct hit. The cordite propellant ignites instantly. The pressure inside the turret spikes in a millisecond. The hatch seals fail. A jet of fire, white-hot and pressurized, erupts from the commander's cupola. It looks like a blowtorch. The massive steel turret lifts off the chassis. It spins in the air, a 10-ton coin flipped by a giant hand. It crashes upside down into the mud, crushing a supply crate. The hull remains, a burning cauldron spewing black smoke. On the reef, the German commander watches the telemetry. A red icon on his screen turns black. He swipes to the next target. "Next," he says. His voice is flat. The swarm shifts. It flows over the burning wreck. It descends on the next gun in the line. The British driver tries to reverse. The tracks churn the mud. The engine roars. The vehicle lurches backward, crushing saplings. It is too slow. 3 drones drop from the sky. They aim for the barrel. The first strikes the muzzle brake. The metal shears off. The second strikes the midsection of the tube. The barrel bends, warped by the heat and force. The third flies directly down the open bore. A muffled thump shakes the ground. Smoke puffs from the breech. The gun is dead. The crew bails out the side doors, dragging a wounded man. His leg is a mess of red wetness. They drag him into a ditch as the drone swarm circles back for the finish. 0610 hours, center of the battery, Paracel Islands. The destruction is now systematic. The heat from the burning wrecks creates thermal updrafts, tossing the lighter drones around like leaves, but the swarm compensates. The German pilots fight the turbulence. They push the machines down through the smoke. The British formation is breaking apart. The disciplined line of heavy armor is now a graveyard of burning steel. A surviving self-propelled gun revs its engine. The driver slams the transmission into gear. The vehicle lurches forward, tracks grinding over a fallen palm tree. He tries to reach the cover of the dense jungle. The turret swings wildly, the gunner trying to swat the flies with a heavy machine gun. He fires a long burst. The bullets shred the canopy, cutting branches that fall onto the deck. 6 drones detach from the cloud. They line up in a perfect column behind the fleeing vehicle. The first drone strikes the rear door. The explosion blows the hinges off. The second drone flies through the gap. It detonates inside the crew compartment. The vehicle shudders. It rolls to a stop. Smoke pours from the viewports. The swarm moves to the ammunition limbers. These are the soft targets. Massive tactical trucks sit parked under camouflage nets, their beds stacked high with 155mm projectiles and propellant charges. A single drone loiters above the lead truck. It drops. The impact is small. The consequence is apocalyptic. The shaped charge ignites the propellant cases. A white blinding flash swallows the truck. The shockwave hits instantly. It flattens the surrounding jungle. Trees snap like matchsticks. The blast lifts a nearby jeep into the air, hurling it 30 feet into the swamp. The sound arrives a split second later. A crack so loud it ruptures the eardrums of the men in the nearby trenches. Burning artillery shells cook off. They launch themselves randomly out of the fire. One shell spins across the ground, sizzling in the mud. It slams into the tracks of another gun, exploding on contact. The track links shatter. The steel snake unspools, leaving the gun immobile. A British officer screams into a dead radio handset. He stands amidst the falling debris. He waves his arms, trying to rally his men to the secondary line. A piece of shrapnel, jagged and hot, shears through the radio antenna. He throws the useless plastic down. He grabs a rifle from a dead soldier. He fires at the sky until the weapon clicks dry. The German swarm ignores him. It does not waste munitions on individuals. It wants the heavy metal. The drones circle the remaining operational guns, looking for the heat signatures of the engines. They dive, they strike, they kill. 0620 hours, the Inferno Paracel Islands. The artillery park is no longer a military position. It is a blast furnace. The heat from the burning ammunition trucks radiates outward in waves, shimmering the air and warping the vision. The mud on the jungle floor bakes into hard, cracked clay within minutes. Black smoke towers thousands of feet into the tropical sky, a grim marker visible for miles. The roar of cooking off ordnance provides a chaotic staccato rhythm to the destruction. A British recovery vehicle, a massive armored beast equipped with a crane and winch, roars out of the tree line. The commander stands in the hatch, waving frantically. He backs the vehicle toward a surviving self-propelled gun. The gun crew, faces blackened by soot, hooks the heavy steel tow cables to the towing eyes. They work with desperate speed. Sparks shower them from nearby burning wreckages. "Go, go, go!" a corporal screams. The recovery vehicle revs its engine. The tracks dig into the earth. The cable pulls taut. The 40-ton gun lurches. It begins to move, sliding away from the encroaching fire. On the reef, the German controller taps a quadrant on his screen. "Priority target," he says. The swarm shifts instantly. 20 drones peel away from the main cloud. They do not dive. They glide, coming in low at chest height, weaving through the burning hulks of the destroyed battery. They approach the recovery vehicle from the blind side. The first drone strikes the hydraulic ram of the recovery crane. The cylinder bursts. High-pressure hydraulic fluid sprays across the hot engine deck. It ignites immediately. A sheet of yellow flame envelops the rear of the vehicle. The second drone flies directly into the gap between the recovery vehicle and the towed gun. It hits the tensioned steel cable. The explosion shears the metal strands. The cable snaps with the sound of a cracking whip. The loose end lashes back, decapitating a palm tree. The freed gun rolls backward, momentum carrying it down a slight incline. It rolls straight into a burning fuel puddle. The tracks catch fire. The crew scatters. The recovery vehicle is now a trap. The fire spreads to the air intakes. The engine seizes. The crew bails out, rolling into the dirt, slapping at flames on their uniforms. The chain reaction accelerates. The heat from the burning gun causes the propellant charges inside to unstable. A catastrophic explosion rips the turret completely off the ring. The heavy steel assembly flies 50 feet into the air. It crashes down onto the roof of a command bunker. The logs and sandbags collapse under the weight. Dust bellows out. The German drones circle the perimeter, acting as a containment fence. They hover 10 feet off the ground, cameras scanning. Anything that moves toward the jungle is tracked. The trap is sealed. 0635 hours, northern jungle perimeter, Paracel Islands. The cohesion of the British unit dissolves. The artillery park is a lost cause, a graveyard of burning iron. The surviving crews are no longer artillerymen. They are refugees in their own defensive zone. They abandon the smoking hulls of the guns. They strip off heavy flak jackets to run faster. They scramble over the slick, mud-covered roots of the mangrove trees, heading for the dense foliage away from the clearing. The air is filled with the coughing of men choking on diesel smoke and the high-pitched whine of the pursuing swarm. A group of 5 soldiers reaches the edge of the tree line. They turn, they raise their SA-80 assault rifles. They fire blindly into the smoke. The bullets snap through the air, hitting nothing but debris. The drone swarm changes pitch. It sounds lower, angrier. The German operators on the reef switch from anti-armor profiles to anti-personnel hunting. The heavy-shaped charges are gone. Now, smaller, faster drones peel off the stack. They move with terrifying agility. One drone spots the group at the tree line. It banks sharply. It drops to eye level. It accelerates. The lead soldier sees it coming. He screams. He tries to dive. The drone strikes him in the chest plate. The explosion is small but vicious. It lifts him off his feet and throws him backward into the vegetation. Shrapnel sprays the men standing next to him. They collapse, clutching their legs and faces. A Bedford support truck tears across the mud, fishtailing wildly. The driver hunches over the wheel, knuckles white. The canvas back is full of wounded men. They bounce and scream as the truck hits a crater. The vehicle aims for a narrow gap in the trees, a logging trail leading to the beach. 3 drones lock onto the truck. They do not attack the cargo. They attack the mobility. The first drone slams into the front left tire. The rubber disintegrates. The rim digs into the soft earth. The truck violently jerks to the left. It flips. The heavy vehicle rolls onto its side, sliding across the mud. Men spill out of the back like dolls. They land hard. The second and third drones dive into the spilled wreckage. They detonate among the fuel cans strapped to the side of the truck. A fireball engulfs the scene. The remaining British troops freeze. They look at the burning truck. They look at the sky. The swarm circles overhead, a black halo against the sun. It herds them. Every time a soldier tries to break for the deep jungle, a drone dives, forcing him back into the kill box. They are not being routed. They are being corralled. 0650 hours. The kill box, Paracel Islands. The center of the clearing is a cratered moonscape. Mounds of burning steel mark the graves of 28 artillery pieces. Only 2 self-propelled guns remain operational. They sit back to back in the mud, engines idling rough, choked by smoke. The surviving infantry huddle beneath the chassis, rifles pointed outward. It is a desperate medieval square formation made of modern armor. The air screams with the sound of the circling swarm. The drones do not attack yet. They hover just out of effective small arms range, a watching audience of black plastic eyes. Inside the lead gun, the commander screams into the intercom. "Canister! Load canister!" The loader shoves a specialized round into the breech. The massive barrel lowers until it is parallel with the ground. It points directly at the tree line. The turret traverses left. Fire! The 155mm gun detonates. The muzzle blast is a physical wall. It flattens the mud for 50 yards. Thousands of tungsten balls scream out of the barrel, shredding the jungle. Trees dissolve into splinters. The foliage vanishes. A hole appears in the green wall. But the drones are not there. They are above. As the smoke clears from the muzzle blast, the German swarm drops. They fall like stones. They do not aim for the armor. They aim for the open mechanisms exposed by the firing cycle. One drone zips past the commander's hatch. It flies into the open ejection port on the side of the turret. It detonates inside the autoloader mechanism. The explosion is contained within the steel hull. The pressure blows the side doors off their hinges. They cartwheel across the mud, crushing 2 infantrymen hiding below. Smoke billows from every seam of the vehicle. The engine keeps running for a second, then shudders and dies. The second gun tries to traverse. The hydraulic pump whines. The barrel swings wildly. The gunner pulls the trigger on the coaxial machine gun. The belt feeds. Brass sprays. The swarm converges on the barrel. 3 drones impact the muzzle simultaneously. The shaped charges deform the steel tip. The metal warps inward. "Fire main gun!" the commander yells. The gunner pulls the firing handle. The shell accelerates down the tube. It hits the obstruction at the muzzle. The physics are catastrophic. The barrel peels open like a banana skin. The explosion backfires into the breech. The entire turret lifts inches off the ring race, slams back down, and jams. Flame shoots out of the vision blocks. The infantry beneath the guns break. They abandon the cover. They run into the open, dropping weapons, hands raised. The drones do not fire. They simply circle lower, herding the survivors into a tight cluster in the center of the mud. The artillery formation has ceased to exist. 7-10 hours. Southern beachhead Paracel Islands. The jungle vomits the remnants of the British logistical tail onto the white coral sand. 3 heavy transport trucks and 2 tactical utility vehicles skid out of the tree line. Tires spin, digging deep ruts into the soft beach. Engines scream at the red line. The drivers fight the steering wheels, aiming for the waterline where small inflatable boats bob in the surf. This is the only exit. The air is thick with the smell of salt and panic. High above, the drone profile changes. The buzzing swarm stays inland. Now, silent, fixed-wing shapes glide down from the clouds. These are not small quadcopters. They are heavy loitering munitions. They dive with the shrieking sound of tearing canvas. The lead truck hits the wet sand. The driver spots the approaching boat. The vehicle accelerates. A munition strikes the truck's cab roof. The explosion is massive. It is not a shaped charge. It is a heavy fragmentation warhead. The cab disintegrates. The momentum carries the burning chassis forward. It flips end over end, cartwheeling into the surf. It lands with a massive splash, hissing steam rising instantly. The second truck brakes hard. The tires lock. It slides sideways. Soldiers in the back leap over the side rails, tumbling onto the sand. They sprint for the water, boots splashing in the shallows. A second munition slams into the sea, 10 feet from the waiting rigid hull inflatable boat. The blast wave lifts the light craft entirely out of the water. It twists in the air. It lands upside down, crushing the radio antenna. The outboard engine screams freely in the air before choking out. Fuel slicks the water, turning the foam iridescent and pink. The remaining utility vehicles try to turn back toward the tree line. They are trapped. The loose sand bogs them down. The wheels spin uselessly, throwing up rooster tails of grit. A third munition circles once, then dives directly into the cluster of stalled vehicles. The impact creates a crater in the beach. Sand, glass, and twisted metal spray outward like a shotgun blast. A burning tire rolls down the beach, settling in the tide line. The survivors stop running. They drop their kit bags. They stand on the shoreline, water lapping at their boots. Behind them, the jungle burns. In front of them, the ocean is watched by the silent, gliding killers. The encirclement is absolute. The island is a prison. 800 hours, artillery park, Paracel Islands. The buzzing dies. The high-pitched mechanical whine that defined the morning fades into the wind. The silence that follows is heavy and suffocating. It is broken only by the crackle of cooling metal and the popping of small fires inside the ruined hulls. The battlefield is a graveyard. 30 British self-propelled guns sit in the mud, transformed from precision instruments of war into twisted sculptures of scrap iron. Barrels droop at impossible angles. Turrets lie upside down in the dirt. Black soot coats everything. The palm fronds, the equipment, the faces of the living. On the distant reef, the German Special Forces team moves with efficient speed. They do not celebrate, they do not speak. They catch the returning drones, snapping the folding rotors shut. They place the machines back into the waterproof hard cases. The sergeant signals. They drag the rafts back into the surf. The engines sputter to life, a low gurgle in the water. They slip away into the vastness of the South China Sea, leaving no footprints on the coral. In the clearing, a British medic kneels in the mud. He wraps a bandage around a soldier's burned arm. He pulls the gauze tight. The soldier does not flinch. He stares blankly at the burning wreck of his vehicle. Other survivors wander through the smoke like ghosts. They pick through the debris, looking for water, for radios, for anything that works. Nothing does. A gust of wind pushes the smoke aside for a moment. The sunlight hits the devastation. The neat rows of the artillery battery are gone. In their place is a chaotic scar on the landscape. Fuel leaks into the soil, creating rainbow puddles. Unspent shell casings glint in the dirt. A single radio in a crushed Jeep crackles with static, then dies completely. The battery is drained. The connection to the outside world is severed. From high above, the island looks peaceful again. The jungle swallows the edges of the clearing. The waves beat against the shore. But the center of the atoll is marked by 30 vertical pillars of black smoke, rising straight up into the blue sky, standing like funeral monuments over the dead battery.